BigHeadsMedia.com for more great podcasts.
Welcome to Dig on America, where we speak truth to power. Every week, we give you the dig on how American history, policies, and media created the social and political issues we face today. DOA is independent media supported by listeners, but they'll tell you we're just fake news, deep state propaganda, funded by George Soros, the Clinton Foundation, BLM Marxists, and...
It's got to be, for today's show, it's got to be Hugo Chavez and Dominion.
I thought you were going to go with the C. Montgomery Burns on this one. Everyone's favorite socialist leader, Bernie Sanders.
Absolutely.
He's the
Welcome
he's
to
the
Dig on
shadow.
America.
He's the shadow governor of Cuba.
Yes.
Him or Soros. Where's our money? Anyway, welcome into Dig on America, everybody. I am Jason Dutch. I am clearly not in studio, but I am here with you because I love you. And I'm here with this guy right there. He's right there, Mikey Famine.
All right, give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna vamp for you. I want you to mute your mic and then listen back on the thing. You know what I'm saying?
And listen.
Like
you want me to do
listen to what you sound like on the show.
Oh, okay. The great. Is it going bad?
And I'm Mikey Famine. Hi guys. I'm the cute one of the band, and I'm joined with the muscle, the diesel. Surprise, motherfuckers.
Oh.
What's up?
What's up, man?
Big
I'm only going
Hasselasa
to be
Ding
on for a
Dong.
quick second. I just wanted to say, hey, I love y'all. I'm up here in spotty internet, so you know.
Hi, Big Ass.
I might have to get up off of here. But
he wouldn't have spotty internet.
Well,
I
you
missed
haven't
y'all.
joined
I
us.
haven't been on in like 2 weeks, so I missed you guys.
2.
Yeah, I missed last week and the week before too.
Been gone more
Yeah,
than
he's
2
right.
now.
He's correct.
I'm up here in the UP, Ernest. So
Oh, you are Michigan UP? Okay, great.
yeah, I'm on vacation with my family, as you can see.
Ah, yes.
But I wanted to pop in and say,
Beautiful
hey,
place, yes.
you know,
Hope you are having a good time.
I'm trying. We're having a great time up here. We just
You've
played
been on
a
vacation.
putting game closest to the wall because it was raining.
You've been on vacation for like a month now. It's nonstop.
No. First he had
That's
to
good
have
life.
he had to have his 2-week birthday celebration, which
Right.
led into the 2-week vacation. It's not his fault that they just bled naturally in together like that.
He turns 50 and the whole world goes to crap.
You know,
Hey, it
and he
means
has
that way sometimes.
and he hasn't even been here to help us clean it up. He just said,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm 50
and,
now.
and here's the thing: is that I'm popping in and I'm popping out. 'Cause we're about to eat. But
Well,
I
have
will-
fun. We'll talk about socialism without you, and you got to get back for next week.
I will be back next week. Love you
You heard it
guys.
here first. Love you, man.
All right.
Bye.
All right,
Bye-bye.
brother. Well, that was a nice guest drop in. So you're saying, so am I okay audio wise, or do I need to make some more changes before we get going?
I wanted you to.
I hear you fine.
I'll introduce our guest and talk to him. Just listen back to the very beginning of the show. Just listen back. You got to know.
Oh, you want? Okay, hold on. All right.
Yeah, just mute yourself for a second. All right. I'm Mike Famine. That was Big Haas, but we have a very special guest today. We have Dr. Ernest Nasto with us today. Hi and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mikey. Thank you, Jason. Thank you for inviting me. Glad and honored to be here.
I'm sorry that Dutch probably harassed you on Twitter to get you to come on, but we're glad he did. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes, I'm a political analyst for Albanian media. I do a lot of analysis of American politics because my training and my formation is in economics and political science. I've been a professor of economics and political science in Albania and in France a long time ago. And I still do some lectures temporary lectures with different universities in Albania still. And that's my background. That's why I think I know one thing or two about the subject of today, which is socialism.
I don't think that's that bad, Mikey.
All right.
I've grown up under so-called real socialism, so
right.
It's not only because of that, you know.
So real quick, I already have my first question.
Okay.
Yes.
I know that Albania is a
Wait,
country.
is this 4 down territory?
No, because this is just like a Albania question. It doesn't really count. Like, tell us I mean, you're in Chicagoland, near all of our stomping grounds now.
Yes.
Describe Albania for the American who may not have really like a picture in their head. Like if you say London, you think of like bridges and fog and all that stuff. So like describe Albania and where you were at for the listeners.
So Albania is a very small country, is as big as Massachusetts and Connecticut together.
Oh, that's
so it's not very big.
Yeah.
And but it's a beautiful country. It has lots of microclimates, and it has like a coast which looks like the coast of Greece, which everybody knows.
Yeah.
It's north of Greece, and it's I would say 50 miles across the sea east of Italy, of the point of the Italian hill.
Yeah, the stiletto. The
Italian hill. You see the Italian hill.
Yeah, the boot. Yeah.
Yeah, Italian. The hill of the boot. Yes.
Okay.
And across the sea, I mean, 50 miles east is my little Albania, which happened to be the most ferocious communist dictatorship during the Cold War.
Really?
When I was growing up. And it was trying to build a sort of communist society all by its own, because it was denouncing either the Americans and the Soviets. It was trying to build some kind of original, like a North Korea of Europe, if you want to, like a pretty much
like an isolationist kind of communist
very isolationist. Yes, absolutely.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
But it was they were calling themselves the pure communists, you know, because everybody else was a sellout.
Yeah, they didn't go all the way.
So you
jumped off the train
of that language in today's language here in political languages in America, right?
Yeah.
Who is the real one and who is a sellout? Who is a?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting. We need to touch a little bit more on that, I think, because I didn't even know that was accurate. I'll be honest, I don't know that much about Albanian. What is Albania, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's why I asked them that, because I think like people like, oh, you know, Albania.
I thought it was
that country.
I thought it was far smaller.
Where our most famous claim to fame is Mother Teresa, because she was an ethnic Albanian.
Interesting. I didn't know that either. See, I'm learning all my Albanian. His dig on Albania starts tonight.
Yeah.
Look, if you ever want to know something about somebody, just ask them. Their own lives is their favorite topic.
Yes, everyone has their own story. And our story today is going to be socialism. But first, let's actually play a real game here. Audible 99. We're going to play a game with you called 4 Down Territory. We'll ask you 4 questions. You'll give us 4 answers. Mikey?
What is one food from Albania that you wish they had in Chicago?
It's called baked yogurt.
Bagged yogurt?
Baked yogurt, yes.
Oh, baked.
Baked, yes.
So it's got wheat in it.
It's like a dish of yogurt and rice, and it's baked.
That sounds pretty good.
You bake it, yes.
So you need to open up the first baked yogurt shop in Chicago.
No, we'll do a baked yogurt food truck.
That's in the plan.
We know a guy. We know. All right, so baked yogurt.
Baked yogurt, yes.
I got a picture for you here. Hold on.
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by that.
Share.
Show me the baked yogurt.
I'll show you some baked yogurt right here.
Okay, so it looks like rice pudding a little bit.
No, it's not that.
Is not that one?
No.
Baked yogurt image.
Put in Albanian baked yogurt. Which one is it, Ernest?
Ooh.
I can zoom in if you like.
Google doesn't even know what this is.
Yeah, no one of those looks like, but that one, yeah, here
On the left?
Yeah, on the left, yeah, that thing, yes.
Oh.
That comes close, yes. Yes.
Oh, I see now. Okay, for the audio people, what's that on? Is there a crust on the bottom? What's that on the bottom? Is that just like fruit?
No, it has no fruit. It's just
it looks like oranges.
A little bit of rice, and then it has meat, which is basically lamb.
Oh, this lady made hers with brandied oranges. Okay, hold on, let me go back.
No.
I was going to say, it looks like little mandarin oranges
then
on
it's
it.
not Albanian.
Yeah, let me get. I don't
She's
want.
She's from South Albania.
Wow, well, I don't know. Lots of things have changed in 30 years.
Those appropriators.
Yeah.
Ah, there we go. That actually looks better than the last one.
Oh, lamb yogurt cat. Is that how do you? It's
Tavkosi.
Tavkosi.
Yeah.
Which
means baked yogurt, basically.
Oh. Okay, now this is what I'm talking about.
So it's a warm dish.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, it does look pretty good.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a shepherd's pie almost.
Casserole with lamb. Yeah, exactly.
Not a combo I would have thought of.
That's the one. Yes.
Yeah, you're right. That they should bring that. I fully endorse your plan. We'll talk to Lightfoot tomorrow.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, Lightfoot and Tim will get together on that on the food truck. All right. So my question for you.
Did you know the mayor actually hit me up in the DMs?
Really?
Asking for money.
Oh, of course she did. Yeah, it wasn't really her. It was her team.
It was
all right. Ernest.
Yes.
When you were a kid growing up in Albania, what was the TV show that you watched about America that gave you after you got here, you realized it was nothing like that TV show had told you that it was?
TV shows from America, we didn't have much at that time, Jason.
I thought Albania loved America.
We had, but this was for historical reasons, and this was coming to us through Italian TV.
Oh.
So the American show at that time on Italian TV was, believe it or not, Dynasty.
Dynasty.
I don't know.
Oh, Dynasty. Okay, I thought you were actually saying it was Believe It or Not, because that was a show too. There was a show from the 80s called Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Dynasty, yes.
But it was Dynasty.
With those oil barons, etc., etc. But that was not what counted for the admiration that the Albanian people had for America, because America was the castle of democracy and the beacon of democracy, and which was our hope after we would be liberated from communism, etc., etc. So it had a lot of historical reasons. That's why we stayed with America all the time.
So they were dead wrong.
I don't know, but the voice of America at that time was really the voice of hope for us. Everybody was listening to the voice of America under the risk of going to prison for that. Yes.
That's really interesting. Like it's, I know that a lot of immigrants, when they come here, they are culture shocked, right? And like a lot of them don't understand why Americans are critical of America because they've grown up like idolizing America, right?
Yes,
and I know in a lot of other cases, they're like, this is not what I thought it was going to be because, Happy Days told me it was going to be this other thing, and this isn't Happy Days, or just to pick.
Are you trying to WandaVision us right now?
Well,
yes.
Maybe, guys. For me, it was a little bit different because I came here through France, so it was not a real shock between Albania, communist, etc., and America. I went through France, which was a different kind of Western and capitalist society. So
you went to France first, then came to America.
Yes.
So you got progressively.
I lived in France for 8 years. So
I see. You got progressively more Westernized, so to speak.
It helped with transition. Yes, absolutely.
It turns out France is a good go-between. All right, Mikey, next question.
Vacations. What's your dream vacation?
My dream vacation would be somewhere on a beach.
You thinking like Madagascar, the Maldives,
Bora Bora, Aruba.
I would say the Maldives only because I've heard that it's the flattest country in the world, and it's under the risk of going under. Yeah, with the global warming, etc. But it's beautiful. I've never been to Maldives. I've been to some other islands in the Caribbean, etc.
Look, don't come on this show and start talking about, climate change.
Yeah.
all your science
stuff.
Whatever. Yes. But I've heard it's beautiful.
I mean, Maldives proves flat Earth theory. It's the flattest place.
Yeah. The Republic of Maldives. Yes.
All right. So let me see here. What is your favorite city other than Chicago that you've been to in the U.S.?
My favorite city in the U.S. would be New York City. I've been there, and it's beautiful.
Is there a strong Albanian population in New York City? I would imagine there is.
There is a big.
There's got to be one in Chicago too, right?
There is one in Chicago, but New York City is much larger than Chicago's, and the largest of them all it's Boston, the Boston community. But I've never been there, so.
Austin, Massachusetts.
No, Boston. Yeah, Boston. Yes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm making a movie joke.
Yes.
I got
Tom Green.
I got a what's it called? An update here from the Maldives. With more than 80% of its 1190 coral islands standing less than 1 meter above sea level, the Maldives has the lowest terrain of any country in the world. This makes the archipelago and the Indian Ocean particularly vulnerable to sea level rise.
Yes.
1 meter. Jeez.
So they're just like literally just sticking above the water. Like that's crazy.
So you dump your can of soda in the ocean and
get stuck
Maldives has to run. Here comes a tidal wave. So
you jammed up our port with your can.
Well, Ernest, we appreciate you joining Dig on America. Despite our technical snafu, every time I'm remote, we have technical snafus in the show. Hey, Marissa. Hey, Constance, CD, Canadian Nolly Man, everybody in the chat, welcome into the show. They're nice Twitter spaces with Kimberly K and Dino. About an hour ago, they are going to be launching Breaking Barriers tomorrow. Will be their first show on the network. So that will be live at 6 p.m. Streaming on Twitch.
6 p.m.
Oh, I'm sorry. 6. Yes. Thank you for clarifying that. 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Streaming on.
So I can make myself a double and sit back and listen to Breaking Barriers with Dino.
Breaking Barriers with Dino and Kimberly K. So we appreciate you joining us, Dr. Ernest Nasto. And you are a doctor of economics, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And your degree is from which college?
It is
Prager
from
University?
University of Aix-Marseille in France.
Oh, nice. Okay. So the people will say then, if they don't like what you say, they'll say, well, that university, it doesn't have the credibility of Prager University. Prager.
Yeah. I mean, nobody would match the credibility of Prager University. That's for sure.
Do they have
They don't even pretend to match that.
Yes, it's Candace Owens' house.
I will say, does PragerU have
it's
one
a lost cause
campus?
To strive for that.
Can they just rent out a convention hall somewhere just so they can have one building for one day? I'm not buying the internet. The internet.
It's
online.
Dennis Prager's bathroom.
Like that, you can't call. There should be a lawsuit or something. You can't just call yourself PragerU. You're not a school. You're making people think you're a school.
Well, technically, a lot of online universities today, I think, but they're what you would call a diploma mill without diplomas. But
yeah.
So you are a doctor of economics, and you are, from what I understand, you've worked in the media on behalf of Albanian media as a political commentary expert on the United States. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true.
Perfect. Well, today we have brought Dr. Ernest into the show because we're going to talk a little bit about socialism. So we're going to talk about Red Scares. Should be an interesting show. So we'll just kind of jump right into the dig here today. Oh, thanks for the nice close-up. Ooh, no. And we'll just get right to it.
Big bucks.
That's why we pay the big bucks here for this $100 hotel room I'm in. So my 8th grade social studies teacher,
Mr. Humble,
taught me things that turns out wasn't always the whole story. And this week, we'll look at the history of the Red Scare. To talk about the Red Scare, it's important to discuss. Oh, and by the way, Dr. Ernest, if you want to stop me at any point in time, just yell out pause, and I will pause. And then after I get done, we will discuss this little bit of history. So to talk about the Red Scare, it's important to discuss the origins of the term as well as some examples of when it was used, but most importantly, why it is used and whether or not there is any truth to this fear-based campaign by looking at socialism itself. Mm-hmm. According to historian Yohuru Williams, I hope I'm saying that right, it's Yohuru, there have been 2 major Red Scares in the United States. The first Red Scare took place from 1914 to 1945. After the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia during World War I, the fear of communism reached its height. After World War II, the second Red Scare, which really continues today, Americans began to fear an anti-democratic and totalitarian nature would spread and even infiltrate the United States through Black Lives Matter.
Antifa. Lesbians with blue hair.
One of the common traits of both Red Scares was what's called red baiting. Now, red baiting is let me get myself a little bit more on camera there. There we go. Okay. So red baiting is the practice of identifying and trying to out or uncover communists. One of the...
Now, when in recent history did we have people, I don't know, snitching on their neighbors if they were doing anything that they didn't like? Couldn't have been in Texas putting out bills just so that if anyone gets an abortion, come tell us, and then we'll come get them and we'll give you a reward.
Stop me when it starts. Stop me when it starts sounding familiar. Yep, and we'll see a couple of examples of that too. So again, red baiting is the practice of identifying or trying to uncover these dirty communists. One of the chief conduits ferreting out these communists of the United States government in the United States government was the House UnAmerican Activities Committee, which was formed in 1938, but reached its peak influence, and some would say its insidious, sinister purpose.
Execute Order 66.
By the 1950s. Williams continues by offering that Southern politicians would often brand political opponents with whom they disagree as communists, right?
Dirty commies.
For example, in Alabama and Mississippi, the NAACP was branded as a communist influence.
True.
The House UnAmerican Activities Committee in 1947 branded many in the entertainment community, such as activist, actor, and athlete, and Paul Roberson, who is one of House's favorite people, and Arthur Miller, who authored Death of a Salesman, as well as others, as they identified them or outed them, so to speak. They kind of accused them of being communist sympathizers in order to ruin their careers in entertainment. So this was really, really spread at an attack on Hollywood during that time. This when they started going off after a lot of people. That's the time that the Hollywood 10 came into the news. So I'm not going to go into that, but that's other history that you can look at. The history of the Hollywood 10 is a very interesting history, how these guys got blackballed.
Let me pause you real quick.
Martin Luther King was one of them that was accused of being a communist and whatnot. Yes.
Of course.
So my question, Dr. Nasto, how can, if you live in a democratic republic, can one person be a communist all on their own?
I would say they can be a communist because they believe in that, but on their own, I don't see much of that.
That's why it's always weird to me when people say I'm a communist. I'm like, did you overthrow the government last night and I just didn't realize it? Like how does someone?
They might say I'm a communist because I like what communism stands for or what the Soviet Union stood for.
Yeah,
there are plenty of nostalgics even today.
Yeah,
who say that.
I mean, there's people sitting in Congress right now who can't wait to get rid of that interracial marriage. Whew, that's been a bother to them. So everyone's hearkening back to you. Better times.
Yeah, okay.
Make America great again.
Yeah, but
you double muted. Try again.
We're gonna make America great again, people. Here we go. So again, the House UnAmerican Activities Committee branded all these guys as communists, especially in Hollywood. We always knew. Disney. We knew you've always been woke. Okay, Walt Disney, definitely the devil. The media, of course, instead of fighting this, helped propagate these Red Scares with biased reporting, unwilling to look into fact, and in fact, in favor of defending the honor of capitalism as being somehow inherently linked to democracy, which is completely false, of course. I wonder why the corporate media would defend capitalism.
It bleeds, it leads, Dutch.
I can't put my finger on why that might be the case. But again, they tried to link, there was this movement to link capitalism to democracy and to the Constitution, which is completely false, not in the Constitution. And of course, it's commonly believed that is the case today. America, capitalist and democracy, so it must be the same thing. In fact, Adam Smith, the so-called father of capitalism, said in the mid-1700s, I had trouble finding the exact date to this quote, but it was around the 1760s or so. His quote is this: "Those who control the economy will use their money and influence to also control the political system. They will use this control to make sure that policy is implemented to benefit them, not the population."
That is not true.
Yes, completely false.
We have mostly evolved out of that now, I would say.
There is no way during a pandemic that companies would just stuff their pockets while everyone was hurting.
Yes,
There's no possible way that could happen.
Yeah, those are excesses of capitalism, but I mean,
not even God himself could make them keep that money.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that Dr. Ernest realizes the sarcasm here, because he is,
he's
English.
He's catching what I'm putting down.
He might start thinking he's on a MAGA show because he's not catching our sarcasm. So even comic books.
I'm catching your sarcasm, but I mean, he's
got me.
I figured you were smart enough, but I don't want to assume that you're smart enough or that you are,
that's just how good my
catching
sarcasm
on to
is.
it. Not smart enough.
There's gonna be that's how strong my sarcasm game is. People will start to think I'm a right winger. That's my goal.
I've always been suspicious of that.
I would never think that about you, Mikey, but
I used to be.
I want to say is that I mean, we are far away from that capitalism that you are describing. That's from that Adam Smith quote, but whatever.
Well, I would actually disagree with that. I don't think we've gotten away from that at all, because if you look at the quote, those who control the economy will use their money and influence to also control the political system, and then use that control to make sure policy is implemented to benefit them. I think that's completely true right now, because you've got corporations who, run the politicians.
But
and
lobbyists.
It might be true in America, but not in other capitalist countries.
Aha.
Yes.
See,
how do we get that kind of?
That's the point.
Can we switch to that one?
There is your aha moment, and that's what I was talking about. Is that that statement right there basically lends evidence to the fact that capitalism and democracy are really not that compatible. So the idea that we have married those two as being uniquely American is super uniquely American.
No, the idea is American. Yes, I agree with that. But it's not true at all that it's only American, that we have married those two, because other countries have married them much better than us.
And I think it really, because they're like Sweden they make tons of money over there.
Yeah, they're highly capitalist.
Everybody lives very well. Everyone works and everybody takes care of each other. It's like it works when everybody's in on the same system, but they're not shying away from a dollar. They're not just like, you know what I mean? Like, their guys are over there making big bucks, but they still take care of the people around them, and they still make sure that everybody has enough. And over here, they're just like, I could just not give them enough, and then I'd have a little bit more. And that's not illegal here, and it's not the precedent here. So they have no expectation or duty to be good to their workers or to the neighboring cities and communities.
The question I would ask about, because I don't know the answer to this,
Evan.
in the Scandinavian countries and countries like the UK and to a degree, and in Canada, you see in the United States you have a big income disparity between your upper managers in a company and your guys who work at the more entry level positions, right? Now, obviously, you can have a difference in title, but not necessarily have that difference. Just because someone is 5 levels above you doesn't mean they have to make 7,000 times as much as you, right? So I don't know. Is that income disparity that you have seen also present in the Scandinavian countries and in Albania and stuff like that?
No, I mean, Albania doesn't enter here in comparison, Jason, because it's not part of the most developed countries of the OCDE, of the Western world. So let's leave Albania out of this. But the disparity in wages between the top management and the workers is the largest or the deepest here in America. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If the biggest difference in Sweden or Norway is 1 to 14, here it might be 1 to 300, 300. Yes, that's correct. So
in the U.S., it says this study looks like this is from the Guardian. It's $670 to 1 from CEO to worker.
I said 300, so I was a little.
Yeah, it's even worse. Like 670 to 1 is bad. That's bad.
Stop being so nice.
Yeah,
so
you're too nice.
That's a unique American characteristic. Yes, okay, which takes us apart from the other societies of the West.
Right. All right. So as I was going, I'll jump back in here and kind of roll through this. So even comic books got into the act with Captain America, who, of course, Dean Cain will tell us has never been political. Captain America went so far as to, in his comic book, basically deputize youngsters into being on the lookout for commie sympathizers in their neighborhood. Because those guys, you know, the guy who works at the grocery store down the street, he just might be here to destroy America if given the chance.
Yeah. Okay.
I knew it, Mr. Humble.
He might be part of a sleeper cell, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, Mr. Humble, he was definitely Red Skull.
Now, time out.
But
Winter Soldier was a documentary.
Yes, for that, all of the Marvel films are a documentary.
Chair, Caramel, 7, Constitution, Green, and then like you just activate, and then you're ready to go.
I think Stagecoach and Homecoming were in there. What is socialism?
I wanted to say something about that
Please.
former Red Scare, Jason.
Yeah.
The Red Scare under McCarthy, I think it might have been somehow justified. Somehow. I mean, you can put anything you want inside of that somehow that I'm saying here. Because you cannot deny the fact that we were facing the Soviet Union with nuclear weapons pointed at us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody was under the threat of nuclear annihilation. So it might have been somehow justified. Somehow, let's call it somehow.
Exigent circumstances.
Yeah, but it's not justified at all today.
Right.
And that's where the whole difference
lies. Well, there was, I think that there was a legitimate reason to have some fear of the infiltration of Cuba having, you know, nuclear weapons pointed at the United States that were Russian. Obviously, we had nukes right on the Russian doorstep as well, so kind of turnabout is fair play. But what was wrong about McCarthyism and remains wrong, and I didn't touch on McCarthyism because I've touched on that before, and I plan on doing a whole dig on McCarthyism. And one thing I also didn't touch on a ton in this dig is Venezuela, because I'm going to do Venezuela all by itself, guys. Like, I'm going to do an entire dig on Venezuela, on the U.S. and Venezuela, because it's a lot more our fault. It's a lot more our fault than you might think. And I'd love to have Dr. Ernest back for that one. And maybe we can get Sweet on for that one too. But McCarthyism brought into the element of like this fear of like the guy you don't know walking down the streets, right? Yeah, you know, and that has resonated into a lot of deeper cultural issues, especially when you see, you know, what qualifies as different to a lot of people is sometimes skin color. You know, so
yeah, that one as well. Yes, okay. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we'll go into this. So move off the Red Scare for a quick second, and we'll come back to that. So what is socialism? And I mean, what is it really? There have been dozens of movements that have described themselves as being socialist. In fact, most countries that are closest to socialist don't have socialist in the name of the country. For example, Nazis called themselves socialists, but were anything but. Generally, socialism implies a level of social ownership or ownership by the people. Wikipedia says social ownership may refer to forms of public, collective, cooperative, or to citizen ownership of equality in which surplus value goes to the working class, aka society as a whole. There are many varieties of socialism, and no single definition fits all. Even socialists disagree about the degree of regulation necessary, to what extent one should be socialist, and whether government, particularly the existing government wherever that socialist is the correct vehicle for implementing socialism within that particular country, right? So, like, in other words, in the United States, we might say, yeah, I'm a socialist, but not under this constitution, right? So something of that nature. As a term, socialism represents a broad range of mostly theoretical systems that and has also been used by many political movements throughout history to describe themselves and their goals, generating a variety of socialism types, as touched on earlier. And this can form, now there's two main forms here. You can have market or non-market socialism. Market socialism utilizes markets, for allocating inputs and capital goods among economic units is really why they call it that. And the alternative to that is planning. Planning is utilized and includes a system of accounting based on what is called calculation in kind. Calculation in kind basically means money is replaced and production is carried out based on a good's use value. Okay, so groups have used socialism to refer to different things such as an economic system, a philosophy, a moral system, and the abolition of labor and private property. So let's look at a few examples of what socialism is outside of the pejorative we have talked about, and we'll circle back to. Socialism is, with no doubt, an economic theory or economic system, depending on whether you're thinking about it or whether you're actually doing it. An economic system, of course, is how goods get around in a community or how people trade stuff.
Yes.
And that includes their time and their labor within that equation. According to dictionary.com, socialism is a political and economic theory of social organization which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole.
Okay,
now,
this is one version, okay.
Right. So exactly, it's one. These are different definitions. So now this, the news organization, describe. Why is this not the? Hold on.
Yeah, why is it
here.
not that? Tell me the answers.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That I know why here. Hold on a second. Well, I started writing this and then I closed it and I opened it up again and I started writing it again. I picked it up, and when I did so, I guess I had it open on two different pages. So I wanted to make sure I have the more updated one. All right. So
issues are the place for me.
The news agency, and I knew that it was wrong because I had changed the way that I introduced now this, because when I say now this, you might think I'm saying now this instead of.
That's the news agency, yes.
Yes, the news agency now this describes socialism as when a population collectively owns the means of production and distributes it proportionally, especially in the areas of healthcare, education, and sometimes housing. For example, in Finland, every person gets the same level of world-class education and healthcare. In the US, a high-quality education is expensive, and thus only those who can afford it own a material advantage. And this leads to class inequality based not on personal ability, but on generational wealth.
Well, I mean, if they would just try harder.
They should just
maybe your kid will win the charter school lottery.
Please.
Yeah.
Can I say something about that definition of now this that you just mentioned, Jason?
Yes.
So what they are defining here as socialism, I would not define it as socialism, but I would define it as socialist policies.
Right.
And the tendency in this country, among conservative media mostly, is to identify socialism with the ism thing,
right,
with only the Soviet-style dictatorship. That's all. But all these other countries which are applying or implementing those policies, I would call them policies, just socialist policies. And you find them in every single Western developed capitalistic country.
Yeah.
There is no country on earth which doesn't have some kind of or a number of socialist policies.
Right.
Do you agree?
Because a park is a socialist policy.
Yes, a park is a socialist policy.
That's why we're getting rid of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And police force
office,
is a socialist policy.
You've got this funny thing called roads.
Yeah, the roads are a socialist
Get them out
policy.
of there. Get them out of there.
Highway system is a socialist policy.
Listen, if you want to get to work, you don't make your own road.
What are you
waiting for?
Socialist crybaby?
Yeah, what are you lazy? You lazy?
You don't want to work.
Yeah,
okay.
You don't want to.
No,
I
you
see.
don't want to work.
I see.
So
Yeah, and
that's why I will define them as socialist policies. Okay.
Right.
One country has more, one country has less.
And you're kind of proving the point here, because I gathered about 6 or 7 definitions from 6 or 7 different places, and all of them are kind of like describing different things, and that's why there's so much confusion about this topic. So YouTuber Mr. Beat, who I really like, calls socialism where everyone owns production, distribution, land, everything. The community makes the economic decisions, and notes that nobody has ever really done this, by the way.
No. So it's a moot point. If nobody has done it, then why lose time on it?
Why lose sleep over it?
Right? Yeah.
Some in the movement call for the abolition of labor, as I mentioned before, and wages. Some in the movement call for the abolition of labor for wages and of private property, though not all.
Okay.
Finally, Marxist theory calls socialism the state following capitalism in the transition of a society to communism, characterized by the imperfect implementation of collectivist principles.
Yes.
Jordan Peterson argues that the popularity of socialism is problematic because people are, quote, unbelievably ignorant about history, end quote, and he adds, quote, what young people know about 20th century history is non-existent, especially the history of the radical left, as how I have to talk like Jordan. They don't know about it, especially the history of the radical left, as how would they know since they're never taught about it?
Hold on,
and
pause.
He is correct on that. Okay.
I'm not going to let you get away with that awful impression. All right, try the line again. He sounds like Kermit the Frog.
A boot?
No. Jordan Peterson. He sounds like Kermit the Frog.
Hi there. Jordan Peterson here. So what young people know about 20th century history is non-existent, Fozzie. Especially the history of the radical left, as how would they know, since they're never taught about it? Now, you say that Jordan Peterson is right when he says that. I'm not sure that I agree, because what he is saying is that, let me finish the quote from him. So, Peterson argues.
Start the quote again, please.
All right. Jordan Peterson, this time in my normal voice.
Yeah. Because
he argues that the popularity of socialism is problematic because people are unbelievably ignorant about history. He says, quote, what young people know about 20th century history is non-existent, especially the history of the radical left, and how would they know since they are never taught it? Peterson argues that older Americans who remember the fall of the Berlin Wall understand the meaning of why socialism is bad, but says since the Cold War, uneducated people, young people, are emotionally drawn back to socialism because of its implied compassion.
So the problem with what he's doing there is, number one, is using a straw man.
Not Jordan Peterson. He would never do such a thing.
He is not using a straw man. Okay. I have something to say about that.
Go ahead.
Whatever.
No. Go ahead.
So the issue here, what I see in that what you read, Jason, is that there are several categories mixed together.
Yeah.
For example, Jordan Peterson is thinking about experiences of real communist socialist societies, okay, with their mountain of corpses, etc., okay,
Right.
which you cannot deny.
Trail of bodies.
But the young people that he is talking about, they are thinking about something else. They are thinking about, well, it's good that everybody has something and they don't starve in the streets, maybe. Or they are thinking that it's not good to have such a gross inequality in society. Okay, good. Okay, so different people are thinking about different definitions here. And I think the problem is in this country is that the right-wing media is using just one definition, one thing.
Correct.
And that's the mother of all misconceptions.
Right.
Because again, like the socialist policies versus socialism versus one person saying I'm a socialist, there has to be some functionality, some utility to the label. You know what I'm saying? So people wanting there not to be people hungry in the streets and for everyone to have health care and you know what I'm saying, the elderly to be taken care of better.
Okay.
And better, like that sentiment can't be both socialist and anti-American and good and patriotic. There's too much stuff being conflated all into the same category.
Yes.
So when he makes these broad sweeping statements saying, oh, these stupid kids, they don't know anything about it. It's like you're talking. He's built up this image of what young people are saying and saying, you're doing this. I know what you're doing. You're doing this. And that's not that. He can't know what they are trying to do. You know what I'm saying? Because it hasn't happened before.
I think that I agree with you. I think it's more of a this or that fallacy, but than a straw man. But I mean, all fallacies are kind of hard to distinguish. But the point of the matter is
false dichotomy
is this or that false dichotomy, right? Same thing, I think. But I don't know. Is there a difference between those two? You never know with all these fallacy definitions.
There might be a nuance tomorrow.
But like. With obviously what he is doing here is he is saying that because he has a particular worldview based on his age, he experienced or saw certain things happen, that those give him a higher degree of knowledge about what this entire economic system has to be. Like this one definition of it has to be the only definition. And that is not necessarily the only answer. Now, it can be true that what was happening in Berlin and in the Soviet Union was bad, but those things are more tied to authoritarianism than they are to socialism. You can have authoritarianist regimes that are right-wing, left-wing.
Yes.
Bad people, it turns out, are bad people regardless of what they disguise themselves as. And so you've got this other point where they love to hold everything that has to do with socialism accountable for Stalin murdering people, which he certainly did, as did Castro, as did Hugo Chavez, etc. Now, Hugo Chavez is an interesting character, and we'll dive into him.
As did Mao, you mean? Mao.
Well, Hugo Chavez there was some human rights violations there, but also we and Mao for sure, especially with the Red Guard.
I'm sorry. What's the name of the show?
Dig on Mao.
Yeah, like we don't have a body count. That's what I'm saying. It's also disingenuous. You know what I mean?
We have a body count. We have a body count, but not only do we not hold ourselves responsible for our own body count, we also don't attribute it to capitalism. Where with Russia, they attribute that not to Russia. Right. Like Russia has had issues with revolution and mismanagement of that country dating long before the communists came around. Like the czars made a fucking mess of Russia for a long time. If you know anything at all about Russian history, you know that Russia was way behind Europe. You know, they were basically still in feudalism during the Industrial Revolution, right? So,
and to all of our Russian listeners, привет.
Those problems are Russian problems. They are not socialist problems. So there's that great saying by what's his first name? Reza Aslan. I forget his name.
Reza Aslan.
Reza Aslan, right? Where he says, you know, he kind of FU'd to this news person. I forget if it was Fox or CNN or whatever, but they had said to him, and it was very profound. They said to him, well, you know, what about Muslim female mutilations? He said, that is not a Muslim problem. That is an Ethiopian problem, not a Muslim problem. If you look at all of Ethiopia, it's not just the Muslims in Ethiopia that do that. The Christians in Ethiopia have done that historically as well. So you have to look at a culture and say, okay, if a culture has a problem, let's shine a light on it. Let's do that. Let's call bad, but let's not attribute bad to something that has nothing to do with it just because it's convenient for your argument. So I'm going to push through this before my battery dies here because I might have to switch mics and I want this thing to get done on the good mic. So the founder of Carl's Jr., Andy Pudzer.
What?
Yeah, Carl. Yeah.
No. I don't care if your fucking phone dies. You can't own Carl's Jr. and your name not be Carl.
It's Andy Pudzer.
Oh, come on.
So the founder of Pudzer's Jr. says common sense is all you need. That's why it's so frustrating to see young people praising socialism and criticizing capitalism. It's bad enough that they're working against their own interests, better job prospects, better wages, personal freedom, but they're also working against the interests of the less fortunate. Interesting. Putzer closes with saying capitalism leads to economic democracy, which we've already kind of talked about is not true, but socialism, leads to the economic dictatorship of the elite, always, everywhere. End his quote. Because, and I want you to touch on that in a minute, Dr. Ernest.
This is one of the versions, yeah, okay.
Right, and then we have some Dinesh D'Souza stuff we'll go over later, but because there are many models of socialism, most critiques of socialism are focused on a specific type of socialism, and that is the experience of Soviet-type economies.
Yes.
Those experiences, however, do not apply to all forms of socialism, as different models of socialism conflict with each other over questions of property ownership, economic coordination, and how socialism is to be achieved. Red Scares, however, amalgamate them all. It should be clearly pointed out that Red Scares are the propaganda that they are. They are nothing more than propaganda, it turns out. And propaganda that is propagated by those who are the biggest beneficiaries of capitalism. And then they package those ideas into nonstop and systemically supported and easily digestible little cakes called hate cakes, right? There's hate baked into the cake, but also fear. So this hate and this fear is intended to continue the status quo of capitalism. This fear is also used to undermine the slightest hint of pushing any new social welfare program for the exact community that might benefit from them the most. And how they do that is by convincing that group, usually poor whites, that movement is against them fundamentally. And this, of course, just boils down to more culture wars, right? So, that is
culture war. Yeah, okay.
So that is the dig there. So if you notice, I didn't talk about two things too much. I didn't talk much about Venezuela, And I didn't talk much about McCarthyism. So McCarthyism obviously is the biggest example of a Red Scare. We can talk about that if you guys want to, but I'm going to do a full dig on McCarthyism at some point. And Venezuela, in the next couple of months, whenever we get around to it, I am going to give you the entire story, probably the longest dig that I'll ever do. Mikey will love it, because Venezuela it's a very, very long story, right? But I happen to know the history of Venezuela. I happen to know quite a bit about it, and I'm sure Dr. Ernest will tell us a little bit about that as well, and I'd love to have him back for that. But I am so sick and tired of that being used as an example.
I can give you reasons why it should not be used as an example.
Because the U.S. had so much to do with it, with their embargoes?
Not only.
No, go ahead.
I would say that one of the main reasons not to use Venezuela is that Venezuela is not considered one of those Western type societies, classical Western type societies, like America, Western Europe, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. It's not part of that tradition. Latin American tradition is something else. It's different. It has similarities, but it's not the same. You see what I'm saying?
Why do you think
call it all the same?
Why do you think it is that people will say a lot, Doctor, that you can't make an argument about the places where socialist policy have been successful? Scandinavia, Canada, the UK, Japan.
About those, yes, absolutely.
But why is it that people make the argument that you can't use those examples because those countries are smaller than us? But but you can certainly look at capitalism and say, well, capitalism. If I were to say capitalism couldn't work in Ghana, right? They would say, well, of course capitalism can work in Ghana, and they're failing because they're not capitalist enough. But when you have a population of 2 million people, I don't know what the population of Ghana is. I'm just using it as an example.
Okay.
But like if you take a country like Albania, for example, where you've got only a couple million people, right?
Yeah. 3 million
maybe capitalism couldn't work there because you don't have the possibility of generating enough GDP or having enough. 31 million people in Albania?
It does.
Ghana.
3 million.
Oh, in Ghana. Oh, okay.
Ghana,
3 million. 3 million in Albania, you said?
Yes.
So, like, how many major corporations are you going to be able to start with 3 million people? But, like, they'll never allow you to have that conversation. Is there like, capitalism wouldn't work there because it's too small? Am I just imagining this on my own because I'm looking for hypocrisy, or is there some truth to that?
No. I would say that the argument from the size of a country, it doesn't make much sense. You cannot argue against socialist policies based on the size of a country, because if you are making an argument that the policy is wrong, if you want to argue that a certain socialist policy is wrong, then it has to be wrong anywhere.
Right.
I mean, a small
the same would have to go,
or a more homogeneous country might give you some more leeway in managing that. Okay.
But wouldn't that hold true for?
It's not the point.
Wouldn't that hold true for any economic system, though, not just socialism?
It would hold true, yes. And you could not say that we cannot imitate or copy some of those successful features of those socialist policies in smaller countries. Because why we cannot just try to copy them if they are successful there? I mean, you can say that America is a bigger country, it's more diverse, and it's hard to implement. Okay, but you cannot say that they are wrong by itself, in themselves.
Right.
Like the right is trying to do here, because the right here is trying to tell us that any socialist policy, any common good policy, is going to take us toward a Soviet-style dictatorship,
Right.
which is totally wrong.
Right.
And that's
Right.
the basic misconception that they are trying to spread everywhere.
But no, that's not true, because Jordan Peterson just told me that these young people are voting against their own interest.
I mean, I would not take Jordan Peterson as an example of the right-wing idiocies here in America. He is Canadian, so
Well, he also pretends to be liberal.
let's leave him alone. But
No, let's not.
You have a lot of American examples to take to talk about.
Well, Jordan Peterson has a lot of influence here in the United States. He speaks all over the place. But let's concentrate on Dinesh D'Souza for a second.
Yeah, Dinesh, yes. Newt Gingrich,
So-
yeah. What?
Well, I've covered Newt ad nauseum. I want to talk about Dinesh a little bit. So
Dinesh, yes.
you had sent me an email that I can't pull up right now because I'm on the phone where that email is. But you had sent me an email with some of the questions.
Yes.
Can you kind of go through like what Dinesh's, because he's like the major pointed to figure when it comes to arguing, and we've covered this on the show 2 or 3 times before with Dinesh, but get a little bit more in depth of like break down Dinesh's arguments for us and kind of give us your rebuttal.
Real quick before you do,
Yeah, sure.
Dutch, describe Dinesh D'Souza, because you're assuming that everybody knows who he is.
You are correct. So Dinesh D'Souza is, I believe, I'm not sure where he's an immigrant from. I believe it's India.
Yes.
And he came to the United States. He became a conservative, and he is big with like PragerU and the Blaze, Fox News. He's basically he is basically the right-wing version of Michael Moore. So Michael Moore obviously has made like Fahrenheit 9/11 and a few other documentaries. Dinesh D'Souza kind of follows in the Michael Moore footsteps, except from the right-wing side. He's made documentaries on Lincoln, on Trump, Hillary's America. He has a couple of them, I believe, specifically on socialism. He's been on all types of podcasts.
Yeah, he made that 2,000 mules for a supposedly stolen election of 2020. Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, he was problematic long before the election of 2020. So he was in jail during the election of 2020, I believe, because Trump hadn't pardoned him yet. I don't remember when Trump pardoned him, but he definitely, actually, I think he was out of jail and then Trump pardoned him post-release, if I recall correctly.
I believe it was money laundering.
But yeah, so give us some of Dinesh's, I guess you could call him, for those who don't know who he is, a documentary maker. Who is super right-wing.
Documentary maker, yes.
Yeah, so give us like a couple of his arguments that he likes to use and then kind of rebut them, if you would. Well, you have the floor for however long you need.
Okay, sure. So here's what Dinesh does. First of all, Dinesh assumes, without never giving a definition, that socialism means one thing and one thing only. And as I said before, as I mentioned already in the show, that the thing means a Soviet-style society with central planning on the economic side and with one-party dictatorship. Everybody else is in jail on the political side. Now, the starting premise is wrong because socialism has meant different things to different people in different times.
There's nuance.
And that's the common fate of broad ideas and ideologies, right?
Yeah.
It's like to use this narrow definition of socialism, like Dinesh does. I mean, we are taking Dinesh as an example, but all these right-wing pundits do the same. It's like if you have an argument with about automobiles with your neighbor, and he says, "I would never like an automobile. I would go with a horse-drawn carriage because my grandpa had the Yugo 1980, and it was all the time in the shop."
It was terrible.
It was
Never
terrible.
worked.
So I mean, you can make a successful argument in favor of horse-drawn carriages, defining automobiles as a Yugo. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It doesn't make much sense, right?
Right.
Or you could define, for example, Christianity. I mean, Dinesh passes for an apologist for Christianity. Yes. You can define Christianity as Spanish Inquisition.
Correct.
And somebody will say, "Oh no, I would never want to live under such a society, under Spanish Inquisition. I know what Christianity means. It's Spanish Inquisition. So I would never have. I don't want to have anything to do with it." So would you accept that? Obviously no, because it's not true. It's artificially narrow. It's an artificially narrow.
It's loaded
definition, right?
Yeah, it's like a loaded definition.
It's very loaded as a definition. So okay, but now even based on that wrong foundation, Dinesh's argument is not good because he keeps bringing examples from India and Venezuela each time that he talks or gives his lectures, for example. He completely sidesteps or ignores the developed societies of Western Europe, Canada, Australia, or New Zealand. He kept giving examples from India, where he has grown up, or Venezuela. Doesn't mean anything for the developed societies of the Western world. So, I mean, I would say that Dinesh flouts a basic rule of logic here, because comparisons are valid only if made between objects of some similarity, right? In the same family. You cannot compare Norway with India. There's no basis of comparison.
There's too much noise in that image. If you were to take that picture of both of them at the same time, you're gonna get too much. There's too many other things that get in the way. There's too many things in the foreground that you'd have to completely ignore.
Yeah.
There.
So that's why I'm saying it doesn't make any sense to counter socialism as Dinesh does by giving us all the time examples from India, foolishness or whatever.
Right.
So, yeah, another argument that he used when he was interviewing with Patrick Bet-David was that he keeps calling Biden a creeping socialist. What does it mean, creeping socialist?
It's a made-up term because
it's Biden a made-up term. So he's making up a totally new category of politicians. I mean, never used before in political science.
Let me educate the audience on what that means. So basically, if you haven't heard that before, with this Biden,
socialist. Okay.
He is trying to make the argument that Joe Biden, a lifelong conservative Democrat, is moving towards being Bernie.
Yes.
And he is doing so by saying that Biden has embraced all of Bernie's ideas in order to get the Democratic nomination. That is completely false. And if you spend any time in a Twitter space or Facebook chat environment between moderate Democrats and progressives, like the Bernie camp,
yes,
you will see that there is very little in common there, and that they can't stand the Bernie side. Yeah. Joe Biden has not crept towards Bernieism. And how do I prove that statement? Where is the forgiveness of $10,000 debt that he promised us? Well, it's not here. Yeah. Where is the universal health care? Well, he said on the campaign trail that he was not for universal health care in any way, shape, or form. Where is the minimum wage increase? Are you going to tell me that if Bernie were president, and I'm not trying to rehash the election here, I'm just saying that in that one universe where Bernie is president, maybe he has failed at implementing these things, but I guarantee you that he would not have gone and forgotten about them really from the start. And the few pieces that were built into the Build Back Better, which failed because of other conservative Democrats, I haven't heard him talking about bringing those things back. Those were the Bernie ideas were the first things to go from Build Back Better during the negotiations.
True, yes.
So he is the lead. He might be creeping towards Bernie, towards the further left on some social issues. And he may even be left of Bernie on a couple of social issues, because Bernie is not the most left on social issues. He's left on economics, right?
Yes.
He's not necessarily, Bernie is not the, and that's a criticism I have of Bernie. He's not the most left when it comes to social issues. Biden might actually be more left of him on a couple social issues. But the idea that Biden has crept towards Bernie's economic policy is laughable.
It is laughable. And but I mean, unfortunately, that's the argument that the whole right-wing media is using, because they are calling all Democrats, not only Biden, as like hidden socialist, communists, whatever. Because they all are based on that misconception that socialism means one thing only, as we said. Soviet-style dictatorship. So any social policy that Democrats are trying to implement would take us a step closer to the Stalin's gulags. You remember the arguments that Sarah Palin made during the Obamacare debates in 2008, 2009, right?
Yep.
That death panels.
I have a hard time distinguishing what Sarah Palin said between what the actress said on Saturday Night Live, because she was so good at impersonating her that I sometimes I don't know which one is the real Sarah Palin.
Yeah. So they were. I'm going a little bit on the sideways here, but I remember that even Reagan in the 60s was making the same argument. Medicare, he said, will take us towards a complete government control over every aspect of our lives. We will lose liberty. We will lose freedom over if we come up with a socialized medicine. I mean, well, Medicare has been around for how many years now? 50 years?
And Medicare is not socialized medicine.
I mean, it is some kind of socialized service, okay?
It's socialized insurance.
Yeah, socialized insurance. But I mean, nobody lost any freedom because of that, like Reagan was saying at that time.
No, and the freedoms that have been lost because of Medicare have been because of the limitations that Republicans have put on to Medicare.
Yeah, okay.
To restrict access.
Or what Sarah Palin was saying more recently in 2008, 2009 about the Obamacare, what Obamacare was going to move us towards, which would be like a Stalin dictatorship, gulags, etc. Yeah. So it's the same argument. So basically, Dinesh is saying that Biden politics are going to get us closer to that terrible state of affairs, which was the Soviet dictatorship. And curiously enough, guys, I would say that Dinesh does not offer any historical examples of such politicians that have come to power to establish a socialist dictatorship through that creeping method. Can you name one?
Well, what about Hillary's emails?
Nobody has done that ever in history.
Wait. But Obama's birth certificate.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, and that brown suit he was wearing.
Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
We'll just, every time you ask them that question, they're just going to
masks in schools. Masks should not be in schools. That's socialism.
Social COVID tracking is communism.
Black Lives Matter, socialist.
So anyway, so all this creeping method which is taking us somewhere towards something terrible, the terrible state of affairs, it has never materialized anywhere in the world. You cannot, I mean, when I say you, I mean anybody of those right-wing pundits who is making that argument, they cannot name one single socialist or communist dictator who came to power through that creeping method. I mean, government taking control over some part of economy today, and then over some other sector tomorrow, and those they end up on establishing a socialist or communist dictatorship. That has never happened before. Never happened in the history of the world.
I would give you a couple of examples that they will use and let you rebut those.
Okay, which one?
The first one would be Hugo Chavez, because they will say that Hugo Chavez and Maduro, I think, is the one who actually did it, not Hugo Chavez, but that Maduro, I think it was, who started taking away private assets from the former elites of Venezuela, who had been in power before Chavez got elected. Because Chavez's election was pretty historic in that he was the first not light-skinned elite that had led that country.
Yes, yes, okay. And that's true.
And they would say that he took those private businesses away, although he didn't take all of them away, but he took away some of them. Mostly oil. He nationalized the oil industry there, which I think we should do here also, but I think we should also compensate the companies to a degree. But nonetheless, and the other one that they will say is, we see it happening now in Canada with Trudeau.
You mean they are saying that Trudeau is going to proclaim himself leader, establish a one-party rule, etc., etc.?
They'll use examples like
send all the Conservative Party members into gulags.
Correct.
No, they'll use they're going to use his COVID mandates.
But yeah, okay. I mean, COVID mandates you can use them against any Western government who implemented those. You can use them against Australians, New Zealanders, Germans, whatever. Doesn't make any sense.
And Israel.
Or Israel, yes. Mm-hmm.
Don't go there because they'll get all upset.
Mm-hmm. So no, this creeping method that they are trying to tell us that how socialism is going to be implemented, it has never happened in the history of the world. So that's a no.
It's called a slippery slope fallacy.
Yeah, which as I keep saying, has never happened. So I mean, even if you go with a slippery slope, though, nobody ever tells us where that slippery slope. I mean, when the slope ceases to be a slope and becomes an abyss.
Right.
When does it happen? When the government portion of GDP reaches what? 30%, 40%, 50%?
Yeah. Where is that line?
No, nobody defines that.
Well, it's hard to define things when you're really just making them up.
Yeah, as you go, yes.
You have to make excuses on the fly when you're really just trying to get your point across, and then you pull Venezuela out of your back pocket, and then someone has facts about it, and you're like, but damn it, Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah.
Why can't you guys just be fools?
What about Hillary's emails? Okay.
Yeah.
And then you say you see you have politicians that pass for very much intellectuals, like Ted Cruz, for example. I mean, he is Harvard educated, etc., and he says we have an unmitigated socialist in the White House, talking about Obama, obviously. And he says, we are looking into the abyss.
Yes.
What is the abyss that he is looking at? When does it happen? He is not telling us. Right?
Don't you feel the crippling grip of socialism on you right now?
All this, because if you look at all those Western successful societies, they have the government portion of GDP all over the place.
Yeah.
30%, 40%, 50%, 55%. But nobody is accusing them of being socialist or being like changing the nature of the system. That's what I'm saying.
But see, Ernest, what you might be missing.
Yes.
And maybe you're not missing this, but Republicans are super good at marketing their ideas.
But yeah, okay.
They're astonishingly good at it.
I recognize that.
The Democrats are equally as bad. And it is like Ted Cruz can go on there right now and say, Biden is an unmitigated socialist. And my evidence is gas prices, just like Venezuela. And every single conservative will read that tweet and say, yep,
he is right.
It's confirmation bias. That's what I always thought. That's what I've been told. That must be true.
Yes.
And there's the evidence. And nobody can talk me off the ledge because I see at the gas pump the evidence, not realizing that gas is a global market.
Yes.
And that Biden is not the president of the world. Yet.
I think he.
I mean,
I think he.
You can take the argument of Hunter Biden's laptop, for example. I know that he is a socialist because what about his laptop, right? Okay.
Someone gets it. Someone gets it. And I'm just like I'm not saying the left should do this. It's not the honorable thing to do. But I mean, if someone comes up and said, "Of course I didn't do X, Y, and Z," I'm like, "Oh yeah? Well then explain this parking ticket from 1984." Yeah.
They do it.
You can't. You can't, can you?
We forgot the evidence. We totally forgot their biggest piece of evidence. Benghazi.
Oh yeah, Benghazi. Yeah. So anyway, do you want to go back to
the Clinton crime bill, which they love, by the way. They just like.
So do you want to go back to Dinesh's arguments?
Please, yes, go back. Please, yeah.
So now later.
These are great. These are great fun, by the way.
Later in that video, Jason, he disclosed the true motivation, as he called it, of the supporters of the idea of socialism. And he said this: professors and other men of words hate plumbers or pest control professionals who make more than them.
Right.
Yeah.
So the professors hate plumbers because those plumbers make more than the professors.
Okay, let me stop you for one quick second.
Yeah.
So this is what he's talking about here, listener, is an interview on the YouTube channel called Valuetainment, right? It's a big I wouldn't call it like super right wing, but it's pretty conservative podcast.
It's conservative, yes.
By a I mean, they're not like Alex Jones level stuff here, but
no.
But they're a conservative podcast by an Iranian-American immigrant who must be right about everything because he's an Iranian who believes in conservatism. So he doesn't realize he's being ponied out and they really hate him. But anyway,
is he Muslim?
I believe he's renounced it.
But
no,
there you go. But now you can be our boy.
Right.
Probably he is Jew, but I don't know.
But what he did is he said to Dinesh D'Souza, I've watched this video a couple times. He said to Dinesh D'Souza, I'm going to paraphrase, something to the extent of, why is it that and he totally frames the whole premise of the podcast. Why is it that if we know I'm going to say it kind of like he tried to say it. See, what I'm trying to get at here, Dinesh, is like, what I don't understand is explain to me why, if we all know, like everyone knows, these college professors, they know, everyone knows that socialism doesn't work. We all know it doesn't work. So since we know it doesn't work, why do people still advocate for it? I don't understand that.
Yes.
That obviously is a false premise to begin with, and he's waiting for another fallacy. But that is how the question was phrased, and then Dinesh answered it with what you were saying. So go ahead.
Yes, and he says that, yes, I know, because the true reason is that those professors and other men of words hate plumbers or pest control professionals who make more than the professors do. So the professors, because they hate them, that's why they advocate for socialism, because they know that if the economy works based on 5-year plans, then professors will be in charge. Oh, it's a perfect argument for kindergarteners.
Yeah, what he basically tries to say is, Mikey, you'll love this, that the professors know they're smarter, but they make less than a guy who owns a plumbing business. So therefore they hate them because they're making more than them, and they know that if they change to a socialist society, that they'll be the elites again.
Yeah, the professors would be in charge, Mikey. Yes.
What do you think, Mikey?
There's a few people in my life, like I'm quite, I mean, I'm not gonna say volatile. I would say I'm more spicy. You know what I mean, like there's a certain level of spice that's attributed to my personhood, and it's not for everyone. A little hot, little picante for some people, not enough for others. There's certain people who even I don't mess with. Garbage man, plumber, mechanic.
Yeah, okay.
Whatever you say, man. Hey, I'm in your world. I'm just like, even if what they were saying was true, the car would still break down. The toilet would still stop up. You still need those people. They're still more important than you are at the end of the day, because you can't get far in a modern society with, I don't know, a stopped up toilet, garbage up to your knees, and a car that won't start.
You don't, yeah.
You still have to respect who's keeping the wheels moving. And I just recently left working grocery stores. You'd be surprised how essential workers are until a pandemic comes around to remind you about how important the people that you kind of like write off as like just background characters in your movie, how important their careers are to your career even taking off, and you being able to feed your kids reliably and all that. Like everyone is connected. So
they are, and that's why Dinesh says that the professors, those evil professors, they hate those plumbers and pest control professionals.
Love them. They love the plumbers.
So the professors want to be in charge, because in a socialist system, they would be in charge of those famous 5-year plans, you know? Yeah. And that's
they'll be in charge of the plumbers.
Yeah, they would be in charge of telling the plumbers what to repair and what to.
Yeah, because the plumbers needed help.
Yes.
Good.
And I mean, it's a good. As I said, when I heard that, I said, yeah, that's a perfect, very very convincing argument for I don't know, for elementary school kids.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. First, second grade might go for that.
Yeah, second grade. Yeah, okay. We can go along with that. Yeah.
Or people who live in Mississippi.
Hey, I don't know.
Hey, I apologize.
And then at a certain point, had
a hard enough, Dutch.
The interviewer, Patrick, pushed back because he said that, hey, how do you explain that Obama didn't turn out to be the communist that he was purported to be? That was his question to Dinesh.
That was astonishing, because that part of the interview was so astonishing to me, Doctor.
He pushed back, yes.
Because he's like, we all thought Obama was going to be this crazy communist, and it turned out he was
middle of the road
conservative. And like, but the funny thing is when we say that, as guys further left, the people, like the mainstream blue dog centrist Democrats, they lose their fucking minds. They're like, why are you criticizing Obama? Like, I'm just telling you what
I'm
his
a citizen.
is. You literally have a Republican whose Overton window is way over here saying, God, Obama was way more conservative than I thought he was going to be. We thought he was going to stay in office for 30 years and undo the Constitution. That was so astonishing.
Establish a Stalin type dictatorship. Yes.
Yeah. That's what he was there for. That's what Soros spent all that cash on.
Yeah. And so then Dinesh responded by saying that, but those youngsters, they don't understand. They are ignorant. They are not aware of what's going on, and that's why they don't understand why. What are the motivations? The motivations of those young people. He delves a little bit into the motivations of those young people, and he never allows for a much simpler motivation. If young people want some more Danish of German features in our U.S. economy, why not? If you want the income or the inequality gap to be narrowed, there's nothing wrong with that. If young people want that, they don't want to change the system. They just want some more, I would say, German features, right, or Danish features. Now, why is this important? Why the inequality has to be narrowed? Because otherwise, you are giving the impression to the young people that the system is rigged.
Exactly.
Because one manager, as you in your on what you said, Mikey, in the beginning, the top guy cannot be 630 times better than you and me. I mean, he can be 4 or 10 times maybe. Okay, I can live with it.
It's a lot of stress, a lot of stress up at that. Okay.
But
fair enough.
600 times.
That's so much stress.
It doesn't make any sense. So if you really allow for those inequalities, then you are saying to the young people who are coming up into the workforce that the system is rigged.
No way out.
That's why the inequality is bad.
Right.
And coincidentally, the countries where inequality is much narrower than here, they are doing better than us. So there's nothing wrong for the young people to advocate for that, without asking for the change of for changing the nature of the system. That's what I'm saying.
We have a comment here from Irish Swede. Irish Swede is a little under the weather. He couldn't join us tonight. He really wanted to be here. He says, I would love to talk to this guy about the history of Albanian economics. Now, see, you guys sound like you guys would be bestie friends. Because if someone said, hey, you want to talk about Albanian economics? I'm like, so tell me about Albania. Tell me about your food, your music. But you guys will definitely, I will connect you guys on Twitter or something like that, so you guys can have some chats. Cool. But hopefully you guys can come back for the McCarthyism episode.
Yeah, and we have to talk about Venezuela also.
Oh yes. So you guys are gonna be regular contributors. Dutch, get them name tags, badges. Make sure the security clearance is all the way up. Welcome to the network.
Yeah, it's so I think that I'm definitely going to break down. I think I'm going to do Venezuela first. So McCarthyism is less interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see if we can get you and Swede on in, like, let's say early October, so that right for the election for all these people who believe that Venezuela is actually a factor in this. So like when it comes to Venezuela, that's one thing I do know about, right? Like I'm not saying everything I know about Venezuela is completely accurate, because, you know, I admit my bias. I look at my sources, right? So I could have some things wrong where you guys might disagree, but historically speaking, the Venezuelan issue really goes back a couple hundred years, more so, you know, if you look at the lineage of how that country evolved. And it really doesn't have all that much to do with socialism. There are some elements that are compounded by socialist policy, but but yeah, I would love to do that with you guys, maybe in a couple of months. Maybe so we'll see if we can definitely set that up with you and the Swede. So and talk about all the U.S. interference in Venezuela, because they want it to fail. Bolton even said so a couple years ago. It's like, what we're doing is working perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, but yeah. So give us one more closing Dinesh D'Souza argument before you go.
Sure. Yes. Now, Dinesh says that the essence, he says, of democratic socialism is confiscating from the wealthy and giving to others, not because they are needy, not because of social justice, but only to get political support. That's the only motivation, according to Dinesh, for people advocating for democratic socialism of the Western European type, you know?
Yeah.
So, this is really a statement which has several grave errors, you know? For example, by saying that, he is thinking absolutely the worst of most of human race, right? Let alone politicians.
Yeah.
I mean, if you pass for a Christian apologist, as Dinesh purports himself to be, how can you reconcile that with thinking absolutely the worst for most of the human race? Like, everybody is out to do those vile things only to get political support. Nobody believes in that for reasons of justice.
No.
Okay. So that's one. And then he is basically canceling and ignoring all the democratic societies of the West. Because all these societies, as I already mentioned, they have adopted a number of policies which are more redistributive than the US. And at the same time, they perform as well as us, or maybe even better than us, in those ranking of societal success.
Impossible.
And well-being. And then he is assigning, I would say, the vilest motives to all leaders and activists who have championed such redistributive reforms in those societies without ever providing any proof.
Right. Bernie spent a couple of summers in Russia, so therefore he wants to exterminate us.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you, before super last question? Can you just,
last question number 4?
My definition of like democratic socialism is very simple, and it basically, the people have the power through the mechanism of voting, right? Economic and political power through the mechanism of voting. Would you say that is a somewhat accurate definition of democratic socialism, or would you have a different definition of that?
That would be similar to social democracy, yes. People control the economy through the vote. as long as you have a fair voting system, or a representative democracy, then you can control the economics of the society. That's true.
So Mikey and I disagree with Swede. That's interesting to hear.
And that's what
hey, whoa! I didn't agree with you
through their vote.
Yeah, you have, because when Mike Ortega said the exact same thing on the podcast, you said, and I quote, "That's the best definition I've heard of it."
For example, you have
pull up the clip.
In Norway. You have those big companies which are managed by the government, by the state.
Mm-hmm.
So people, you can say that because people vote for the government, so that's why they are in control of those companies.
Right.
So they have a stake in them. It's not that. I mean, I would say that the main difference, Jason and Mikey, is that they don't see the government as an alien body which is out to get us, as we see the government here in this country. The Europeans in general don't see it that way, and this is ironic, because it was one of our most famous presidents who said the famous words: "A government from the people, by the people, and for the people." Right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Would not perish from the earth. So now our president said that once upon a time, and we are all fearing the government because it's that alien body out to get us. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, whenever I try to talk
those other countries, they are not seeing that. They consider the government as expression of their own collective will, right?
And not to say that voter suppression isn't a thing, but if you're not a big fan of what's going on in your district or from your leadership, you didn't vote for their opponent, you kind of had your recourse and you missed it. So if you don't like the shit that's going on in your town or in your neighborhood or in your district, do something about it. Get that person out of there. Like I'm so sick of complaining about Mitch McConnell when he's been there for 374 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like someone needs to run against him and get him out of there if you want him to go away. You can't just tweet about him enough for him to go away.
If you want to complain, then you vote him out.
Get him out of there.
So that's what I had to say about Dinesh's arguments.
Mate number 4437.
I'm satisfied. I can't wait to get you on with Swede, because Swede, I love when Swede disagrees with me and I get to prove him wrong.
You haven't done it yet. And I pulled up the Mike Ortega episode here. I'll pop it in the chat for everybody who's hanging out with us on Twitch.
It's on there 1,000%.
It's in the chat, so I'll let people comb through it and they can prove me wrong. But
unfortunately, that's like a 2.5-hour episode, so there's some combing to do there. But definitely give us the views and do it on Twitch.
Somebody will do it.
It's towards the end of the interview.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah. So, but it's definitely I'm paraphrasing, of course, but it's still there. All right. Well, Doctor, it's been a pleasure, my friend. We appreciate you jumping on, and we definitely are going to have you back. Thank you. You've been great.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Mikey.
If people wanted to follow you on social media, how would they do so?
Yeah, you don't have enough followers.
Ernest Nasto in Twitter.
Let me grab your link. Put it in the chat for the people.
So it's just Ernest Nasto. I'm following you on Twitter, so I'll post it in the notes. But
I'm on Facebook too.
So send him a friend request. Unless you're some bot from Nigeria, then don't.
Unless you're a soy boy cuck libtard.
Yes.
All those stupid names.
All right. Well, that'll do it for today. Shorter show. I like that. No Humidor, no attorney Anna. Tune in tomorrow, guys. Do us a favor. If you're in the chat, please tune in tomorrow at 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern, and support the new show, Breaking Barriers, with Dino and Kimberly. I'll probably be on the first 5 minutes of that show, but I might not. Mikey might be on the first 5 minutes. Mikey might join for a minute too. Not sure.
No, I won't.
But,
I will be very busy. I'm going to go see the Backstreet Boys.
Are you really? You're going to go see Nick Leahy?
That's 98 Degrees is Nick Lachey. I hate you. I get to reunite my wife with her boyfriend that she met at a con. She met Lance. No, one of them. Nick Carter.
Lance Bass Ass.
No, she met Nick Carter, so she's gonna get to see her boyfriend again.
Oh, good for Nick. Well,
Good
your
for
marriage
Nick.
Your marriage was fun while it lasted.
In your face, Nick.
All right, guys. So join in for that show, and then on Sunday we have Jason Call coming back to the show, running for Congress in Oregon. He's a super progressive. He'll be on Lauren Hubbard's show on Sunday at 5:30 Pacific. So check out our other shows, guys. If you're not checking those shows out, check out those other shows. Birds Aren't Real.
Okay, guys.
Hit those bells so you get the notifications so that you get all of that new crazy stuff that we have going on right now. So
Hippos Aren't Real.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, Doctor.
Thanks a lot. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.